Morning, all. All right, so news of the day video to start things off for your Sunday, June the 4th. And a lot of hockey going on. It's June the 4th. Here we are. So from last night's game, Paul Maurice at the post-game press conference basically said, breathe, don't panic, we're not worried, we've been down before. And they were. And against Boston, they looked miserably bad through those first four games. They had the one win, and in a couple of those losses, it wasn't really close. Last night's game was tied going into the third period, and then Vegas had some good fortune, as well as the reality that Florida kind of melted down late in that game. We saw the double minor to Tkachuk. We saw the delayed game penalty given to Florida because they determined that it was not hit with a high stick on the Stone goal. So that's three power plays right there. And I'm seeing a lot of, well, look how lopsided the power plays were. Yeah, but that's three of them. So outside of that, the power plays were 4-3 in favor of the Vegas Golden Knights, and they only scored once out of the seven. So at any rate, I do think this series is still close. It's not over. Maurice is right to say, look, we were down against Boston, because yeah, they looked bad against Boston at times, and then all of a sudden they won. They have to get back to their game, though, and they need to not unravel in said third period. And again, those 10 days off, maybe they were feeling it in their legs in the third period more than they were in the first and second. But at any rate, game two is going to be fantastic tomorrow, I do believe. And, hope. I honestly, I'd like to see the series go 7. I think that'd be great, even though that means that the playoffs would go till June 16th. But anyways, we'll see what happens. Speaking of, let's talk about the ratings side of it as well, because I've seen a lot of arguments about whether the ratings are up or down. Well, on the American side of things, and American ratings are generally easier to find than Canadian ratings, they're the highest they've been in 4 years through the conference finals. So I haven't seen what the ratings were for last night's game one, but I'm going to say they're probably pretty strong in the U.S. You have a couple of markets that aren't used to being in said Stanley Cup Final. I mean, Vegas has been in conference finals 4 out of 6 years, but Stanley Cup Final, this is the first time since 2018. And for Florida, this is the first time the Panthers have been anywhere near the Cup since 96. And so, yeah, I expect the ratings to be pretty strong on the U.S. side of things. Canada, the ratings generally are higher if there's a Canadian team involved, obviously. They will drop when it's two U.S.-based teams involved. But there's a lot of Canadian players there. I think there's a lot of communities who are going to be interested to see if their hometown kids get a Stanley Cup. And so we'll see how it goes. We'll see how the ratings look after the Stanley Cup Final. I'm sure there's a discussion to be had there. Speaking of discussions, a lot of discussion about Gary Bettman and what he had to say about the Coyotes. And looking at the way the media is reporting it, there's two different ways his comments are being taken. Either they're doubling down and staying in Arizona and they're committed no matter what, or they're open to moving the team if they can't find themselves an arena there. The reality is, I think it's closer to they're open to moving the team. They don't want to. And Bettman said they're in a position to not necessarily move a team that's losing money that they weren't in 20 years ago, meaning profits are higher now and they're more capable of, handling losses here and there. But yeah, it's not a blank check. It's not a situation where they're going to stay in Arizona no matter what. So I really think that the reality is that he has to go out there and say certain things. If he went out there and said, yeah, so we're going to move the Coyotes, I guarantee you there'd be some owners calling him and going, pardon? There would be some as well that would say, yeah, that's fine, I would imagine. But there would definitely be some, wait a minute, we haven't had a Board of Governors meeting. It has to be done in a certain fashion, and as I said in the Jim Ball Silly video, if you don't follow a certain path to getting a team and moving a team, it's not going to happen. So we'll see what happens with the Coyotes. The interesting thing to me is the idea of looking in Phoenix. I mean, obviously that would be the best solution for the team, putting them back in Phoenix, but I don't know. I don't know. It kind of feels like trying to put the toothpaste back into the tube at this point. So we'll see. But I did not interpret it as Bettman saying no matter what, they're staying and we're committed to, full time. I really saw it as him saying we'd like to stay, we'd like to make it work, however, and leaving that door open that may change at a later date. So Connor Bedard, some hardware for him. He is the first in CHL history to win Player of the Year, Top Prospect, and Top Scorer in the same year. Playing for the Regina Pats, 57 games, I should say, 71 goals, 72 assists, 143 points. I checked; those numbers are good. And the draft is on June the 28th. That's when he officially gets drafted into the NHL. So that's about 3.5 weeks from now. The 29th, we get rounds 2 through 7, of course. And there'll be live streams on the channel for both the first round and then for rounds 2 through 7. Although rounds 2 through 7, it's a little more laid back, a little more casual in atmosphere because I don't try to keep up with every pick. There was one year I tried to keep up with every pick, and it just got ridiculous. So at any rate, let's go ahead and all come together and see what happens with the draft. Because there are very differing opinions on who should go when in the draft once you get past about number 2. Then you start getting into the arguing. Pretty obvious that it's going to be Bedard and then Fantilli, and then after that, we'll see. So today is the day for the Memorial Cup Final. It is Seattle. It is Quebec. 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. They will play against each other. Again, I do intend to watch it and do a recap after it's done. I think Quebec's going to win it, to be honest, but we'll see. It should be an interesting final, and of course, after this is done, does Patrick Roy end up becoming a coach in the National Hockey League again? Feels like we have this discussion once every couple of years when it comes to Patrick Roy, and I think it's because we'd love to see Roy back in the NHL in some capacity, and as a head coach, sure, we'll take it. So we'll see if he stays with the Remparts next year, or if he does end up back in the NHL. But he has a chance to win a Memorial Cup. That could raise his price as a head coach if he was to remain in the NHL, or return to the NHL, I should say. Joey Decord last night made 25 saves on 26 shots. Coachella Valley wins 2-1 to take a 3-2 series lead on the Milwaukee Admirals. And I'm thinking Hershey wants this series to go 7. And as they await the winner of this for the final for the Calder Cup. But yeah, Decord, good goaltender. He's a UFA this summer. We'll see what happens with him. Whether or not Seattle finds a way to hold on to him. Do they, make some kind of moves with their goaltending? Or do they keep things as they are? Be interesting to watch them this summer. But yeah, Decord's had a good year. The Everblades. So Florida wins. So I don't have an Everblades jersey. And I thought, I'll wear my Toledo Walleye jersey. So the Everblades win game 1, 3-2. Oliver Chow scoring at 14:06 of overtime. And that's in Idaho. So at Idaho Central Arena, Florida gets the win in overtime. Idaho set a record this year for wins by an AHL team. Believe it for points as well. And so Florida trying to do to them what the Florida Panthers did to the Boston Bruins. And of course, the Florida Everblades do have an affiliation with the Florida Panthers. You have your NHL affiliate, you have your AHL affiliate and then your ECHL affiliate as well. And so, Florida's doing well this year. Elliot Friedman reporting that the team, that the Winnipeg Jets are listening on star players. So this is Scheifele, this is Wheeler, this is Hellebuck, and of course Dubois. But they're not looking to rebuild. So hockey trades. I am a big fan of hockey trades. That means like you need this, we need that, and let's swap. And we don't see that often enough anymore in the NHL. So the Winnipeg Jets apparently open for business. And I'll do a video at some point soon talking about the Winnipeg Jets and how the picture looks. And if they traded these players out, what are they going to need back in order to stay in contention and maybe turn things around a little bit? For Kevin Cheveldayoff, this is a really important summer. I would think that if things don't turn in the Jets' favor next season, and if that's after big moves are made, maybe this could be Cheveldayoff's last year as the general manager of the Jets. But at any rate, they're definitely listening on big name players, and Hellebuck I would think would be an expensive addition. But as we're seeing in this year's playoffs, goaltending still matters. Bobrovsky and Hill have had excellent playoff runs. Of course, with Adin Hill, that points out the one problem with goaltending really matters. It's impossible to tell which goaltender's going to get hot next. It is just impossible to tell which goalie is due for a hot run. And at this point, it's Adin Hill. Absolutely fantastic goaltending. And of course, I wanted to finish this out with Friedman reporting that Dubas, as president of hockey operations in Pittsburgh, gets a 7-year contract. That's a nice long period of time. That's some real job security. And so kudos to him for securing that. I think all the discussion of all the rest is done now. All of the rest, I got, I talked about the press conferences as far as I feel this way, anyways, that it's done. It's all done. And good for Dubas getting himself a 7-year contract out of that. And I'm sure it's a pretty highly paid contract as well. So he'll be there until he's 44, unless something happens. But either way, that's a lot of money. So good on him for that. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.